Good evening. We're Today is August the 10th, getting into the Tokyo session. Today we had quite an interesting session after the Federal Reserve Bank came up with its report that the growth in the U.S. economy is not as expected. The U.S. dollar sold off, and this is the chart of the pound. You can see that the move to the upside, we had a very big move to the upside, about 180 pips to the upside in the pound dollar, or a loss of 180 pips, if you will, in the US dollar. But we have to keep things into perspective, and when you look at this chart, you could see that the actual major trend is to the downside in the pound, and this move could be construed as a correction to the upside, and we should be looking for a continuation to the downside. This upward move or decline in the dollar, you can see also on the daily chart that we are still on the same sell signal that we had out of our online trade planning session on Sunday, which was actually to go short below the 159.80. The same setup you could see in the dollar Swiss. That is the decline that we had in the US dollar in the New York session. That was the major decline that we had in the New York session, which technically is again, if you look into the scope of the big picture, the actual trend for the US dollar versus the Swiss is to the upside, and this is nothing more technically than a possible correction in the upward trend. One of the interesting things that I would like to share with you is looking at the actual dollar index. This is the dollar index, and from Sunday our trade planning session was actually to go long above 80.80 based on the index, and you can see that on yesterday we had a big push to the upside. We put a high on the index of 81.65, and we, after the news came out, we sold off on the index, and that is the dollar versus all the other currencies. We actually did sell off, but we closed the day right above the 80.80. We closed the day actually at 80.97. 80.92, if you will. So this is quite a positive indication for the dollar that it is still above our buy signal, and as of yet there is no reason for us to initiate a short. We should initiate a short only on a trade below the 80.80. One of the classic things about price behavior is you have to look at what happens when or how the prices behave once they penetrate or they go through a significant point. Here you can see when the prices did trade below the 80.80, we had this capitulation all the way down to the 79 level. Today, after the Federal Reserve came out with the news and we traded below the 80.80, that decline below the 80.80 did not exceed actual low for the day, was 80.77. So after this so-called negative news on the dollar or on the US economy, our decline was only 4 pips below the structure point. And that means what? That tells us that the prices, again, either is not behaving as per our expectation, because it has a standard behavior. If it trades below the structure point, we should have seen the decline. We did not get the decline this time, so that tells us that the bias to the market is to the upside. And with that, we are trying to take the high probability trade, which is basically, in this case, to the upside. With that, we should be looking at going into the Tokyo session tonight. As you can see, the dollar Swiss is beginning now to push up. We are still above our buy point in the dollar Swiss, which is the 103. We're about 130 pips above our buying point. Also versus the dollar CAD, we are still, that is the sell-off that came today. We're still positive. We've taken out the highs, and also with the pound dollar and the Australian dollar. So based on that, we are getting again a lot of positive moves into the dollar, and this means we should be maintaining our positive bias to the dollar. But be careful tonight, after big moves and after volatile sessions like what we had this morning. The market usually tends to be slightly volatile, moving in a sideways pattern, but in the general direction of the high probability or in the bias, so basically in the general direction of the dollar. Okay, good luck.